A map is an amazing thing. It's full of details, it's full of information that just someone has had to do an enormous amount of research to come up with. I can't even imagine how anyone comes up with a map like this. But here's the thing about a map. A map is only good if you know a couple of things. Number one, if you know where you are on the map, and number two, if you know where you're going. I mean, I can read the map and I can see names of roads, I can see cities, I can see locations of states, but none of it makes any sense to me if I don't have an understanding of where I am in the light and the context of the map. You see, a map is not necessarily in and of itself strategic. It's like anything else we might teach or use that's information-based. The information, if I don't see how it fits into the context of my life, doesn't take me anywhere. And ultimately, we've discovered there are an awful lot of curriculums that have a lot of information, and they can even be full of all kinds of principles. The real question is not, are people learning something? The real question is, are we leading them somewhere? You see, there's a difference in a map and one of these. This is a GPS, and this is an amazing tool. The GPS not only tells me where I am at all times, but it also, in the light of where I'm going, tells me how to make the next turn and the next turn and the next turn to end up where I need to be. You see, one of the questions that we need to start asking as leaders is this: where do we want our kids to be? What do we want our kids to become in the light of where they are? We don't really need simply a curriculum. We need a strategy. That's why a lot of times at Rethink, we're talking about our curriculum for preschool, which is First Look, our curriculum for children, which is 252Basics, or our curriculum for students, which is XP3. We say this isn't really a curriculum, it's more of a strategy, because in our world, we're trying to lead students and kids in a direction somewhere. And we think beyond all the information, beyond the fact that we want to ask questions about curriculums like, is it biblical? Is it fun? Is it relevant? We think there's another host of questions we should ask. And one of the questions is this: is there an end in mind? Are we leading kids somewhere? And as you look and unpack these curriculums, we hope you'll see in a very clear way, we're trying to lead students and children to a specific end. What would happen if all of a sudden, within the context of your curriculum, the curriculum itself was developing and training your leaders? We think that this curriculum actually unpacks the values of your ministry as these leaders use it. We also believe that this curriculum teaches them the very faith skills that they ultimately are going to model for their students and their children as they sit in small groups and as they talk about these issues. And we want to be very strategic again to help them unpack those things. Another question that we think we should ask is this: does this curriculum establish community? Because ultimately, if we're not establishing the relationships that students and children need to have established in their lives to learn truth in that kind of context, then again, what we're doing is not strategic. Another question that we think is very important too, that we think determines whether or not you have a strategy, is this: does your curriculum and do your resources actually engage parents to be partners with your ministry? It's very, very important as we move down this path of building our ministries and building our programs that we're constantly looking at how we're engaging and enlisting parents to be a part of the process so we can synchronize the home with what we're doing. And then there's one other question that we've learned to ask that we think is also very, very strategic and separates a curriculum from a strategy, and that's simply this: does this curriculum, does it mobilize students to get actively involved in personal ministry? We think there's a missing piece to student ministries around the country. As you look around the landscape of what many churches are doing, we think student ministry primarily, for example, is still a spectator sport. And we have to succeed in shifting the mindset of a student to thinking that the church is something they go to or something they attend, to understanding that they are the church. And we have to unpack that in a way where they see how they plug into service. So a good curriculum, a good program, a good strategy is going to make sure that it gives students and children, even at some degree, an opportunity to serve and to plug into ministry. So as you begin to introduce yourself to some of these curriculums, and as you think about being a partner with us at Rethink, we want you to get used to asking these questions. Does it have an end in mind? Does it develop leaders as they use it? Does it ultimately establish community in the hearts and lives of children and students? And do parents get involved? Is it engaging them to become partners in your ministry? And then finally, does it mobilize a child or a student to begin to serve and assume responsibility in ministry personally? Because if those things are happening, then it's strategy, not just curriculum.